I used to be afraid of you, but I don't think I am anymore.
There's nothing to fear except God.
For me, God is a disease.
It's the things that make you look at what you thought you saw in a different light. The hole in the Pentagon being too small for a plane. The lawn isn't mussed up. The government's not showing the plane hitting when many cameras photographed it.
There's nothing to fear except God. God. God.
Oh, if you already know the answers to your questions, then why ask?
It's too big.
Back and to the left. 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 Back and to the left.
What's up, everybody? We are Half a God's Face podcast. Special announcement. Austin Healy Bozer is not here. He just got engaged today, actually. He
Congratulations. Woohoo.
proposed to his girlfriend. I gotta be honest, I don't remember what her name is right now, but irregardless, congratulations on that. And yeah, we're gonna do an episode on 9/11, which we have been in talks for. There have been different high-profile Half a God's Face universe people in connection to this episode, but we had to just say fuck it and bring back Niko and Eamonn, who we did the JFK episode with a couple months ago. And at the time, we had talked about doing a 9/11 episode. So here we are, September 9th, 24 years after 9/11. How's it going, everybody?
We're feeling the effects. We are feeling the aura of the motions of the oceans from the North and South Towers falling.
The motions from the oceans.
Nah, man, I'm doing good. It's been crazy riding these 20 years.
It's been a crazy ride.
I every day still remember. Every day I remember. Every year I remember. I'm never forgetting. Never forget. My name is Niko Robledo. Actually, guys, I'm just going to clear the air right now. I was involved. I am not going to say to what extent. And I do not regret my actions.
That's okay. I've had my
All right.
You shaved your beard a number of times. You've been pulling out a lot of different looks, and I've thought, maybe what's he hiding? What's he really looking?
I'll tell you what I'm hiding. It's connections to 9/11 and no particular group.
That's kind of a good way to lead into it, though. This shit is just
okay.
So all I'm asking on this podcast as we talk about 9/11 is to maybe not, bring that up to me or maybe accuse me of anything.
Let's just say that let's just say a myriad of racial groups were involved in 9/11. A lot of people were holding hands with each other. I got to be honest, I was just on my computer trying to find Austin's fiance's name. I could not find it. I got to be honest. I honestly literally have no memory of what her name is right now. I'm sorry. I want to face the music. I know we're about to talk about 9/11, but this is now my 9/11.
Oh.
Literally
said, hey,
saying congratulations to my co-host and just blanking so hard.
He said, hey, man, you want to do this podcast with me? Do not tell me your girlfriend's name.
Oh, my God. No, so anyway, let's move on.
And now the second tower just got hit. That's the thing.
No, so on this, we can call it a holiday in different ways. I've never looked at 9/11 like a holiday. It's usually kind of a bad day, historically. But I don't know. I feel like it's kind of the perfect episode for people, especially our age, where we were actually alive when it happened. And like, I personally, I don't know. I don't know if my parents were like this with a lot of things, but I feel like I just heard about really specific stuff, like not like on a delay, but I don't know. I don't remember like the day. I had never remembered the day. I don't know like what I was doing, you know. I don't remember even when I was told about it. I think I was probably told about it like 2004 or something, or 2005, you know. Um, but I was watching war movies, so I kind of had an idea, but then I like really didn't know the official like, you know, plot points and stuff. But I'm of the age where like I could imagine people like remembering stuff. But it is interesting, like for this episode. I feel like I just wanted to kind of just start off and like, because you know, we did the JFK episode and there's just so much research involved, and there's a lot of research involved with 9/11. But the fact that it happened when we were all alive, I feel like it's important to kind of talk about the evolution of perceiving the event from the first person, because it really is like the most confusing, evil, disturbing, one of one thing that has happened, like outside of like, it's like basically COVID and 9/11, like in our lifetimes, of just so many questions, so like just infinite questions. But 9/11 is even more suspicious because it's like no one even flies a plane into a building ever. Like no one even
And every
accidentally does
time
it.
that it ever happened in New York was like an accident. You know?
Yeah,
Like,
and
was
it's
it
just the
Richie
fact
Valens
that,
died there?
yeah, and just the fact that like on the day, and then when you really see all the footage, you just hear this narrative of like, okay, well, so everyone thought it was an accident at first, and then as the day progressed from like 9:30 a.m. throughout like the afternoon, it was pieced together. I think the initial real time reaction people had to it the morning of was like, oh, this is an accident. And then when the second tower got hit, everyone was like, oh, this is like an attack. And then they hear all this other shit. But I don't know if you guys had like any I'm kind of like going on a rant already, but I don't know if you guys have any memories as far as like hearing about it. Like I just said, I actually have like basically no memory of it, as far as like I just had no idea what I was doing the day of. You know, I was probably 5 or something, or 6.
What year were you
So
born in?
96.
96, and so was I. So what is that? 4 years plus one. Yeah, 5. Yeah, because I think that was the age that I was. I remember the day. I don't remember how old exactly I was,
Uh,
but I'm sure we can, mathematically figure that out. But in my mind, it's ambiguous. But I remember the day because I had I had like a weird school when I was younger. It was like months on and months off. I don't remember exactly how it worked. I was a kid, but it was one of the months that I was off, and I it was September, and because I remember, because I was at the end of summer in August, I was on, but the in September, I my parents, didn't know what to do, and we're living in San Jose, California at the time, and I go to my grandparents' house pretty basically every like weekday, days that they are like days that they work or don't work or whatever. And so if they both work, I am at my grandparents' house. I got a PS2, top of the fucking line, playing Crash Bandicoot, playing Spyro, going crazy on the MFR. But so I'm a kid, right? I mean, my dad works at the airport. He has to get there super early. I'm getting dropped off at like 4:30 in the morning type shit. So
oh my
I'm
god.
at I'm at my grandparents' house, and then my uncle Ben, my Theo Ben, he works at a like at the time like a Marriott type deal, and he was managing that hotel, and so he he had to get ready for work very early. And I remember I got there, fell asleep, I woke up, and I was like, oh, yeah, yep, it's time. I'm up. And it's time to grind on video games, at least for an hour until everybody wakes up. And so I get up, start, like I get up and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like go downstairs, go see what's going on with the TV. I get up, my Uncle Ben is already up, which is kind of weird. And
Mhm.
then he is watching the fucking TV. Like, this guy, like, sometimes he has the news on in the morning, like when we're like doing that, like if I like have like woke up later or whatever. But it was just like I was like, okay, all right, man. Like, sure. Like if I come downstairs, he's like, oh, cool, you can use the TV. Like, I'm chilling. And so I'm fucking
Mm.
I come downstairs and I'm like, okay, he really wants to watch the TV. That fucking sucks. I'm trying to play games, trying to set up my PS2. I
Oh,
got with my
shit.
backpack. And I'm sitting here with my backpack and I'm just like, okay, man, like, please hurry it the fuck up. I just remember me like wanting him to be done doing the TV. Cause I'm like, that's kind of like my thing. Like we know what the deal here is, right? and uh and so like obviously he's the fucking like twin towers. The first tower had been hit at the time.
Oh my god.
And so he is like glued to the screen. He's getting ready for work too. Like he's putting on like a tie. Like bro's tying a tie
Oh
in
my
San Jose,
god.
California to go, go manage this fucking hotel and like do the, like morning shift. Like, and it's just like,
Wow.
so
Man,
he's
that
in
put
the
me in a
living room.
time machine there. When you said he's putting on his tie as he's watching, like, because I would assume that means he's probably late for work, right? Or
No,
do you
no, no,
think he
no.
was
He's not
on
late for
time?
work. He's just getting ready. He starts because okay, so
Because that happened at
in
like 9:30 or something, I
well,
think.
yeah, so because
Oh
in
no, no,
so
no! You're right. You're right. It's in California,
yeah, so he's
so it'd be
like getting ready.
7:30 or some shit, right? Or like
I'm
6:30.
yeah, like I think it's 6:30. If it happened at 9:30, it happened at 6:30. They're 3 hours behind from from New York.
Crazy.
Imagine
And
watching
so like
Wow,
yeah,
that's
because it's like
crazy.
I've gotten there and I wake up and the sun barely rises. I'm a fucking kid. I'm like we're up at 6:30 and we're fucking going. Like
yeah. Yeah, just
bro,
imagine waking up
on
seeing that
unmedicated
TV.
ADHD at fucking like 4 or 5 years old. Like yeah, baby, I'm ready to play the PS2. and I did that's like my memory of that when I think about it, which I think is just so funny, is that I remember being like, "Are you fucking kidding me? This guy's watching TV."
Yeah.
Like
So do
I
you
was
feel
like,
like it took you like a while before you even like realized what that was, or like
no,
when?
it took me a little bit, but I remember because my okay, so I'll get to that actually. Yes, yes, I think it took me like maybe a couple days, but my fucking aunt and uncle are crazy, and they explained it to me, and I can get to that after this because they're pretty related within the next a couple days. But so I remember being like, okay, bro, like the TV, like I get it, okay, man. And then he was like, okay, I'm getting like ready to go to work, and so you can start like setting up your PS2 if you want. So I was like setting up the PS2. I got it all ready to go. He's getting ready for work. He's like, God damn, like he's fucking like the first tower, like the one tower got hit, and
Right. Yeah.
he's like, ah, Jesus Christ, like that's so terrible. Like even like imagine that to him in that moment, it was just the one tower. To everybody in that moment, it was just the one tower, and that was a horrible like experience.
Yeah.
Like, and then I'm like, hell yeah, we're playing PS2. It is time. And I'm like ready to like I have it like turned on essentially. Like as soon as I turn the input,
Yeah.
the fucking like we're gonna do it. And and he's getting ready to go to work. Fucking second plane hits the tower. And I
That's crazy.
remember
You actually
so
like remember both
viscerally
of
him
them.
screaming. He like yelled to the TV. He goes, "Whoa!" at the TV.
Holy shit.
He goes, "Whoa!" Like he does not. I remember him experiencing that like moment and him being like, "Holy shit!" Just like saying "Holy shit" a bunch of times. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
I remember myself being like, "Are you fucking joking? I don't get to play PS2."
Yeah, I
Like
bet. That's
like
crazy.
I didn't even get it. Like he was excited and I like responded off that energy with like in the most opposite direction. I was like, wow, like are you kidding me? But like to him, like I remember him being like, whoa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lot, honestly. And do you feel like someone like told you like what that was? Like, because I feel like if I saw that at that age, I like either would have forgotten about it or someone would have had to have told me that I don't even know that I like saw it. But yeah, maybe my parents just like kept me from seeing like the footage, but I kind of think I might have seen it and like just forgot. Like probably not like on TV. I think I was at like preschool, but do you feel like your parents told you what that or sorry, who was the guy that was watching the TV again? Was
Yeah,
your
my Theo Ben. Yeah, my uncle.
okay, yeah, I did think you said he was your uncle. Yeah. Do you feel like he explained it to you in real time, or you just like probably had a sense of confusion for a while?
Oh, I had a sense of confusion for a couple days, which brings me up to what I was saying earlier, which is um, my Aunt Karen and Uncle Ray. My Aunt Karen loves to tell this story to me, which I think is so funny. So Ray is a crazy guy. I don't know how much I can truly say about him. Um, my Uncle Ray was a Green Beret in Vietnam, did a bunch of like wild stuff, ran for Congress in California back in like the 90s, did not win though, and now lives in Jacksonville, Florida. And they lived in California for a time when I was younger with my mom, and like just kind of like hanging around her and just for that support system. And now they live in Jacksonville, Florida. And my Aunt Karen was for a long time the Republican County Chairman of Jacksonville County, and then she now does local politics still for the Liberty Caucus. That is what she like. That's her whole thing. And I will never forget her telling me that there was a thing like we were all like Karen came over to my house with my mom and dad, and Karen and Ray were all there, and like she told me that I was watching this like thing about it, like a 60 Minutes or like news. I mean, like news was everything was about 9/11, days after. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
like any like publication, and she told me that I remember her explaining it to me, being like a bunch of bad men attacked this building and a lot of people died, and that's like, and it's like, and then I apparently responded with, "I'm gonna get them with my hammer," which is some cute kid shit to say. What can I say? I'm ready. Listen, honestly, if I was 18, damn,
Man,
maybe I would have. If I was 18,
No, it says a
I
lot.
would
MK
I could have
Ultra
enlisted.
goes quick.
It says a lot.
MK, yeah, they
Ultra.
got me on the MK Ultra. I was ready to go.
It
But
says a
nah,
They
lot.
knew that they were going to indoctrinate you with
they were
this.
like, give him acid when he's 16. Do it.
Well, yeah, that comes later, obviously. But I was going to say, like, yeah, it was like a traumatizing event. And then through the power of suggestion, they just kind of shattered your like ego. It's like the ego of a young 5-year-old when his uncle is screaming, "What the fuck is that?"
Yeah, no, it's crazy, dude. Yeah, because like I
I
didn't
can't
get
even
it. Like I
imagine
didn't
that.
understand.
Brother, yeah, that's a wild story.
He was like freaking out. Yeah, and then and Karen Ray explained it to me, and and it was just this experience where now like, and through like hearing that from the external, it's kind of built the thing. It's such a young memory to me that I'm like trying to hold on to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
So
like
do you
and it's just so interesting.
I like do you want to? I'm curious, Eamon. Do you have like an early memory of like do you have a firsthand memory like that? Because I don't. I'm almost like
No,
jealous, even
no,
though it's
yeah.
so horrifying. I'm almost not jealous.
I'm sitting here feeling the same thing. For me, yeah, it's just sort of like I do have one memory of I believe I was in the car and I think my mom got the news like through the radio or something like that.
Right.
Or somebody
No,
else in the car.
sorry. Can I cut you off again?
Oh yeah.
Austin's fiance's name is Abby.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Congratulations, Austin and Abby.
I literally texted him because I felt so bad. And I did just question myself because I was gonna say that name, but I didn't want to say the wrong name.
Right.
So I just couldn't find it to remember.
That's a good save. I like that.
Yeah, so I didn't say it, but if I had started guessing names, holy shit. We were looking at another 9/11. But anyway, what were you saying, Eamon?
I was in the car with my mom, and I think she got the news through the radio or another adult in the car with us. And I remember wherever we pulled over at, they got out and they were hugging each other, just really shocked about the whole thing. And I think just hearing Niko's story too, it's just so crazy how it affected everybody right away. And then the story's cool too, because in retrospect, you do forget that people were thinking one thing when one tower went down, but then when the second one goes down, it's a whole other thing, you know?
Yeah. No, it's crazy. And I feel like just before we get into more of like the specifics, because the firsthand stuff is it really is fascinating. Because I feel like my entire and I don't know a lot, especially like artistically, I feel like I've been working on this novel for a couple years, and so much of it is informed by the consciousness of the Bush like era. Like I feel like my artistic work hasn't really reflected that so much, but it's been something that's been on my brain for a long time, is specifically the W. Bush era. And I guess I had always kind of thought of 9/11 as a very strange event, but I feel like my segue is just kind of curious of when you guys started, because I don't remember. I think my mom explained it to me and I didn't really question it. It just didn't make sense. I just remember hearing the details and was like, okay, I didn't process it. I feel like I didn't develop. I wasn't really that conscious super early, like with certain like political stuff or historical stuff. I was interested in movies and stuff, and I was like, oh, so these are war movies and stuff. But my mom definitely voted for Al Gore, so she was always like, Bush is going to be a disaster. Was always kind of the vibe, was that she knew he was gonna be a disaster, and then he ends up being a terrible president. And I think a lot of people had that experience too. A lot of
George Bush does not care about black people.
yeah, exactly. And he really is. I don't know. My perception of history and politics is so kind of constructed around going back and looking at his presidency and being like, wow, this really was like one of the most profoundly destructive and evil and hideous presidencies. And I've heard this kind of said for a while to kind of get people in the door of talking more about like the things you're not supposed to talk about with 9/11. Is just this idea that everybody admitted quickly that Saddam had nothing to do with it. Like literally within like a year or two of Iraq
Yeah.
being destroyed, people immediately, like I'm literally reading this book by John Mearsheimer, The Israel Lobby, and he's kind of writing about how early on people were pushing to get rid of Saddam because of 9/11. Donald Rumsfeld, the morning of 9/11, was saying Saddam had something to do with it.
Wow.
And it's also funny because Donald Rumsfeld had that photo of him taken where he's shaking Saddam's hand like in the 80s, because he's literally like, we're backing Iraq versus Iran in the Iran-Iraq war.
Yeah. That's
So similar to bin Laden, who we were also giving money to. But he was just like kind of on the same side as that, but we'll get into it. But I guess my main question for both you guys is, when do you feel like the conspiracy side of it got like more real? Because I feel like it was really around middle school I started, because I think Loose Change came out at a certain point, and Nick Mullen, he said this on his podcast before, but he's like, in the early days of the internet, people would make beautiful 9/11 truth documentaries. I'm like, that was kind of my experience too, was because I wasn't super online, but I was online enough to have kind of an interest in like, okay, what is 9/11? Like by the time I was like 6th, 7th grade, I was like, wait, so what is this? And I do remember there being just a huge amount of like counter narrative stuff. And then I remember, like Eamonn was saying before the podcast, just that it was almost like a meme before memes even existed, of like, 9/11's an inside job type shit, or the planes are holograms, like just like making
Jet
crazy
fuel
ass
does
shit
not
up.
melt steel beams.
These are the classics.
Yeah, that's the other one. And it's just this kind of idea that, and I've heard people say this about our era of comedy as well, is that it actually took like a second before that became kind of the mainstream like humor. But now it's just like you don't even bat an eye. It used to be like offensive if you made a joke about 9/11. I know comics probably were really early, but I think it was really like by 2010, 2015, it's like, yeah, that's like pretty hilarious. If the way I did it earlier, you notice how I did that like a master too. I just kind of popped in 2 9/11 jokes on the 9/11 episode to symbolize the towers. I probably said more than that by now, but I feel like it's kind of a slam dunk joke if your punchline is 9/11. So it's a long winded way to I don't know. Like, when do you guys feel like you actually had a really compelling conversation or something where the event looked even more shady than you had any, and not even knowing like what shady even meant, I guess is kind of how I'm
Yeah.
framing it. Is it was just so much like, wait, our government could do that? Is that even possible?
Yeah, it's definitely the YouTube shit. I feel like that's trademark YouTube and early 2000s, pre 2010 or pre 2013 YouTube is just filled with like these 9/11. I don't even know if they're documentaries or they're just like YouTube poop, kind of like almost trolling. You know, you see it on Instagram now with stuff like this too. Um, and it gets you wondering. And then you meet some people. For me, I met people whose family were in the military, and they just tell you other things, you know, that the government's done in the 80s and stuff like that. And
Oh my God.
it starts feeling like
Yes,
you know,
sir.
in
I
the
know
same
about
region,
that.
you know, in the same region, same governments, kind of. And it's like it just seems more implausible. You don't even talk about 9/11 yet, you know?
Not to be offensive to your family, but like our parents are just barbarians. Maybe it's my parents, but I just like thought like off the top of my head, it just shit my dad has said over the years. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't quote that on the podcast. He's gonna come on for a Michael Mann episode, so he'll
Let's
hang
go.
himself. He'll put his own neck in the noose. I'm not gonna quote him out of term, but
Yeah, you don't gotta. Like, it's just like let life take its course.
like you hear these like stories like that. You know, I think one of my friends' dads said that their dad watched. They said it to him, and he told me type shit. He said that they watched like the Gulf War on TV type thing, like
Wow.
it was like on ESPN almost type vibe.
Christ.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't think it was actually on ESPN, but that was like the feeling of it. You would like tune into it like it was like an event to watch on TV.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, and I don't know. It gets me. All this stuff gets me thinking about 9/11 that happened before.
But
Just
Eamon,
yeah,
do you think that was like kind of like? Do you feel like in middle school was kind of like that moment where you were like, "Holy shit,"
it probably could have happened in
or
like the
like high
seventh or eighth
school?
grade, but yeah, about middle high school. I
Yeah,
just
that's
met the
something
right
like that.
people. I
Yeah.
got into the right things, you know.
I feel like for me, it was eighth grade, like about to enter into high school, where a really horrible fact about me is that, especially through high school, kind of not really much after, but I was on 4chan from
Oh,
like 2007. I
Mhm.
really got into it like 2012 to like 2011 to like I don't know 15, and it's just everyone on there like that's just like conspiracy central.
yeah, right. That's right. I was
Like
kind of feeling that in retrospect.
like anonymous is there. Like it's just like weird shit where you're just like what the fuck. Like it's just so odd. I but yeah, I
Yeah, because
remember
I
watching
think.
a documentary in eighth grade, and that's where I was
Oh
like,
shit! Yeah, it might have
I
been
like
loose
I
change.
saw like one they would show us in school, and then I like remember everything else that I've seen on like yeah, YouTube is a great like point as well because like yeah, that's where people were really just posting beautiful beautiful 9/11 documentaries. That's so, but like yeah, I
They're
like I
like
remember
works
being
of
like
art.
seeing it and being like
Yeah.
oh yeah,
See,
like
that's the
this is
difference.
a horrible thing that like didn't have to happen, huh?
Well, yeah, that's definitely part of it. But if people going off the rails so quick because the vibe, I kind of remember back engineering the vibe where I never had a question about it. I never thought one way or the other of it. I was like, okay, that happened, and then Bush acted like an idiot was like the vibe I had gotten. And then it just started to sink in that he obviously like it obviously doesn't make any sense that he went after Saddam. Like I remember that kind of being one of the earliest like political conclusions I ever made in my life was, oh wow, Saddam has like nothing to do with this, like at all. And
Mm.
that actually does remind me of when my mom told me that Saddam Hussein had been hung. And she was just like, it's totally because she's a lawyer, and she was just like, yeah, it's totally appalling, like a show trial, just the most fake thing you could possibly do. Like just from that perspective, it just wasn't like a
Yeah.
real event. Even though he was an evil guy,
Yeah.
it was just such a like the coverage of that event was so like ugly. And I don't remember
Mhm.
seeing like a video of it, but I remember kind of seeing the imagery of him like all scraggly and shit, either after he'd been captured and then it's just like within like a year or two of that. So he probably got killed like in maybe 2006, 2007, I want to say, like hung from the neck until dead by his political rivals. And then it was just kind of like, oh yeah, no, he had nothing to do with 9/11. Like we can't even come close to tying him to this event. And then with Afghanistan, it just becomes a never-ending war where we're fighting the Taliban, who had also nothing to do with 9/11. I mean, Osama bin Laden was giving the Taliban $10 to $25 million a year to stay in Afghanistan in the 90s.
Wow.
$10 to $25 million a year.
Wow.
So it wasn't exactly like they were they were being bribed, you know. So then we go to war with the Taliban, which also makes no fucking sense because they didn't do 9/11. And I don't know, I feel like the really confusing thing about talking about this event is that so many of the very practical details of the day itself are so strange that a lot of like the documentaries and stuff I was seeing, I think the way to look at it, if you want to really make a compelling case on why this event doesn't pass the smell test, let's just like get straight down to it, okay? It doesn't pass the smell test based on the foreknowledge, based on how much every intelligence agency knew about this shit. For me, in analyzing it as an adult, saying, okay, a building can't come down because it's hit by a plane, that kind of feels like a dead end. Or you know, like a missile hit the Pentagon was one of the other ones where, you know, there are people that are witnesses that said they saw a plane do it. I mean, is it possible for one of the terrorists to do that action with the plane? That's a different question, I think. But there were like witnesses who saw the plane. But I feel like I did see a lot of conspiracy stuff early that was like leaning into stuff like that, you know, that there weren't even planes and all this kind of stuff, which I think anything is possible. It's such a strange event, and the planes operated in such a crazy ass way that I don't rule out that, you know, they say like Operation Northwoods had a provision in it when they were going to try to blame the Cubans for a terrorist attack. There was like a provision about hijacking planes and all this kind of shit. So David Icke, pretty much the British Alex Jones, he'll be like describing like exactly how Operation Northwoods like did it and be like, yes, that's how they did it. 9/11. I'm like, okay, well, it's possible, but I think you have a stronger argument to say that the event seems like it was allowed to happen at the bare minimum just because of how much intelligence all these different agencies had. And that's where I started to have way more questions, where it's like an overload. It's like you're overloaded by questions with 9/11, but I don't discount some aspects of like Building 7 is one thing. I feel like that was just kind of like I've heard of that forever, but it only really clicked like in the last like 10 years where I was like, what the what? Like I do remember seeing that in documentaries and stuff, but it didn't really click because the whole thing like doesn't really make any sense, you know? But now at my age now, I feel like Building 7 is the ultimate aspect of this like case where it points to not just foreknowledge, but it points to like this was a totally inside job. I mean, that's pretty bizarre that a building just goes down that wasn't hit by planes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so break that down. How that even what's the main story on that? The mainstream story on that. That's always
Oh my
confusing
god,
too.
bro. So the mainstream story is that like debris from the Twin Towers like ended up catching fire in this building that's like shielded by another building in front of the towers.
Yeah, right. It's not even next door. It's not adjacent to either of them.
But
And
no,
then on one of
that's
the
the one that
floors,
doesn't.
what agencies were in Building 7 again?
Oh my god, I'm literally about to look this up. But yeah, like
All
the
of them.
CIA, the
Yeah.
IRS,
Yeah.
the Secret Service. Like there's all these major there's all this major stuff in that building. But no, and I think the other thing that freaked me out when I was first looking through 9/11 documentaries was the phone calls people were making on the planes. That was
So
another
crazy.
really creepy
Yeah.
one.
I
Oh,
didn't even
Is
heard
no,
them. That
yeah.
sounded creepy as
how do
hell.
you make a phone call on a
Oh yeah,
plane in
how do you?
2001
Jeez.
And I was really tripped up on that for a minute. I didn't really have a good answer. And then I read this book by Anthony Summers, The 11th Hour, or something, I think is what it's called. And
The
he's the
so
guy
sorry.
that wrote, or The 11th Day. He's the guy that wrote the J. Edgar Hoover book that I read. And he essentially just kind of dismissed it. And he said, oh, no, it's seatback phones that were in the planes. But David Icke, listening to him, he said that he followed this whole thing from day one. He said that they originally said it was cell phones and they flipped it back to like the seatback phones. The
Oh shit.
point I'm making is if they say it's cell phones, that's like such a big hole in the story. You question almost everything. Like I'm saying, this is to me like the dive in the deep end. You don't know any information about al-Qaeda and intelligence and any of this kind of stuff. Project for a New American Century. Like none of this is in your consciousness when you're just watching these documentaries at the
Yeah.
age of 14. You're
Yeah.
just thinking to yourself, is this whole thing like a Hollywood production? Like there's like
Yeah.
no footage
Oh
of a
my
plane
God,
hitting the
yes.
Pentagon. It like looks like a missile, like, and you just have to believe that there are witnesses for it. And I don't know. There are all these rumors of like there weren't people found in the Pentagon, like the passengers weren't found in the building. But that actually, in the Summers book, here's an example of a 9/11 conspiracy that I almost think I would take the mainstream approach on. Not totally mainstream, because I have a theory that gets a little wacky. That's also baseless, but Anthony Summers says they did find like body parts and they identified people on one of the hijacked planes in the Pentagon. Like the plane that hit the Pentagon, they did identify like people like when they had hit the building. So I don't know. I don't know how that could be. I don't know how he could do the research on a book about 9/11 and be that wrong, but I don't think the truthers would like hearing that, and I, more or less would consider myself a truther, more or less, but that's just what I read. So those are two things that I think I would almost classify as like a dead end. Um, I think building 7, you can get much faster to just totally running with what even is this event. But there's a lot of stuff like that. But no, the floors of the World Trade Center 7, it was a 47 floor building. The fires were on the 11th and 13th floor, or 11 through 13. It was the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, is
Yeah.
what caught fire,
Goddamn.
and Provident Financial Management. So
Also, the CIA and the Secret Service were inside there.
yeah, so floor 25 is the IRS, DOD, CIA, and then floor 24 is IRS. Floor 23 is Office of Emergency Management. Floor 22 is Federal Home Loan Bank of New York. 21 is First State Management Group. There's a ton of crazy ass shit in here. Secret Service is floors 9 through 10.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I feel like the main vibe after this happened was like a big criticism was how did we know this happened? And it was like, well, we're not sharing enough information between our agencies. I think was
Yeah.
the main criticism that happened, and already it's kind of starting. Like you can kind of see how that almost foreshadows the surveillance kind of state. Like, oh, we got to make sure everybody's, and then you get total information awareness and Patriot actually coming in hot.
Yeah. No, it was very hard to conceive of like a real adult like take on the event for a lot of years, just because even insinuating that any of it was like not incompetence is just like so offensive, like to people for so many years, like in our lives, it was so taboo. But I feel like it's really kind of loosening up, because hearing Tucker Carlson bring up Building 7 is just like, what are the odds of that?
That's real.
I like never thought in my life that like YouTubers that everyone is watching that are basically the equivalent of like what TV was like 20 years ago are admitting that there are just extremely bizarre like things that don't make any sense with this event. But
and that guy was on Fox on TV 20 years ago, and he's saying this now. That's crazy.
and he was lying through his he'll say that he was, he just bought into the propaganda and he believed everything about it, and he just made like an honest mistake. But if you're looking at it, like, I don't know exactly when he denounced them going into like Iraq. Like, I'm pretty sure it was pretty late. It was like after they had done it and stuff. And I get it. Like, pretty much everyone was duped outside of like Alex Jones, like type people, or who like predicted it was going to happen, or Bill Cooper, another OG conspiracy guy, just because Osama bin Laden was in the consciousness. Like, he was like on TV. They were really, you know, the USS Cole bombing happened, and the first World Trade Center attack happened in mid 90s. So it's already kind of in people's brains that an attack can happen on the building. But
I don't want to, ruffle any feathers, but I think we should also bring up Larry Silverstein.
Oh, that's another good one.
Because he did take out an insurance policy on the World Trade Center complex shortly before, everything happened.
Specifically for a terrorism clause on each building, and it was like he got $4.55 billion at the end of it all.
Yes, fucking sir.
Specifically under a terrorism clause.
And also, I feel like there were stock market things going on as well. Like, people were like taking out fucking like bets against airlines and shit beforehand.
The shorting of the stocks.
Yes.
I mean, there's just so much shit,
No, I think still the guy who owned the Twin Towers owned Building 7 too.
Oh my god.
Oh my lord! The whole complex is one of the like all the World Trade Center.
No, and then that's in the movie. I do remember seeing Casino Royale, the James Bond movie, in the theater when it came out, and that's one of the like plots of Casino Royale. Is it comes up in the dialogue that someone had people had shorted the airlines before 9/11 because people like knew it was happening. So that's even in that movie, a super mainstream movie, as like a creepy. And so the dude me and Eamonn have watched a little bit of is James Corbett. He said that there was like a Bush family member, like Marvin Bush, like made money like trading like in after or before 9/11, like really prescient trades that you couldn't make unless you knew what was going to happen. And then the FCC just destroyed all the data, and they just didn't they just didn't even look into it. But there's so much weird shit like that where you're like, okay. I feel like similar where JFK, there are kind of smoking guns. I mean, it's just like witness testimony with that. That's a little bit easier than like 9/11 because there's just so many like explosions and crazy ass shit going on.
Also, the Jack Ruby murder with that is just still, I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Like, you're really, I'm a mobster and I hate Kennedy. I love Kennedy so much. I gotta kill this guy. It's like, fuck me. God, I can't get past that.
No, exactly. And this is one of those things where I'm like, I had always heard this and I always thought this was like a conspiracy theory. And then over the years, this just sunk into my brain like, yeah, it is this overt that a neocon think tank, and there were a couple of these, some of them buddies with Netanyahu, the Israelis had a version of this where with some of these same neocons came up with a plan of, okay, if we get rid of Saddam Hussein, then the Middle East it'll be easier to like have a better time, So this think tank, Project for a New American Century, literally said we need a Pearl Harbor type event to pull us into regime changing the entire Middle East.
Wow. Dude, fucking Grover Norquist was also in those fucking think tanks as well, and also part of the Bush admin.
Oh yeah, who is that?
He's just like a classic activist fucking just conservative think tank guy that was just a part of the Bush admin. Yeah. Grover. Yeah, you should look at Grover Norquist.
So it was this paper called Rebuilding America's Defenses. And the people who were part of the group that wrote this paper were Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, Louis Libby, Paul Wolfowitz, and Jeb Bush.
Jesus.
It's like they all co-authored something saying we can achieve our foreign policy goals if a Pearl Harbor type event happens, and then it fucking happens right away.
It's wild. It's wild to say the least. I mean, yeah. So it's like a mix of incompetence and like something, things already happening, and then I mean, probably get a little push
that
off
makes
that
me
shit.
think that there's like a total willing, like it's an inside job from
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
word go.
When
And
you get down
again,
to
like
those
I'm
details.
saying, do I believe that? Again, like as James Corbett is trying to, like, I'm watching some of his videos and he's going as far to say that the whole thing is a fiction. Like Osama bin Laden didn't do it. Al Qaeda is a totally fake organization. I don't know if I agree with that. I've read quite a few books on the terror wars, the torture program, the CIA, all this kind of shit. And I've read books about Osama bin Laden in the Afghanistan war, in the Russia Afghanistan war, the Soviet Afghanistan war.
Well,
And yeah, these are real. Like these are real, like real people. They did write about some of it. I get it. Some of this stuff was gotten under torture. Like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, I think he was thought of as the mastermind. He admitted like all this shit under torture, and they even wrote a paper about it saying about torture in general, that it's unreliable because people just lie when they're being tortured to stop being tortured. So it's
yeah.
like, how do you even know like someone saying some shit under being tortured? But plenty of intelligence around the world: German intelligence, French intelligence, Egyptian intelligence. Ahmad Shah Massoud, the leader of Afghanistan, who was basically the George Washington of Afghanistan. And he was the guy that the Afghan people wanted to lead Afghanistan, but the Soviets didn't want him. They wanted, I think, Najibullah was this other guy. And then the Pakistanis and the Saudis wanted Hekmatyar, or whatever his name was, who was a Arab fundamentalist who would chop up Soviet soldiers and leave their limbs in the street. So the Soviets were terrified of Hekmatyar. But
Wow.
Massoud was like the George Washington. He was like the real genuine Afghan that wasn't an Arab fundamentalist like Osama bin Laden. So Osama bin Laden hated him. Osama bin Laden assassinated Ahmad Shah Massoud on September 9th, 2001, 2 days before 9/11. And Massoud had literally gone to I believe American intelligence, and he said that Osama bin Laden is gonna attack America, and then he gets assassinated a couple months
Wow.
later.
Wow.
And some of the books I read, because this is another point of contention, is did Osama bin Laden admit to doing it or not? And apparently he would deny it in the press, but I think a lot of this is that he would kind of admit it in the press in a secondhand way, you know. But it wasn't like he was never admitted. Like there are different journalists that said that he admitted it like off camera or off the record, which is kind of funny. Just be like, oh yeah, I did that shit, like in the middle of like your interview. Like you can't just say it with your chest. You're like, no, I did that. But no, he talked a lot of shit in the Al Qaeda camps. Like he was overheard saying he did that shit, So there's some contention where people are like, Osama had nothing to do with it, but then they don't really look at like all the things that happened. So I got this quote as far as him, Osama bin Laden, speaking sympathetically. That's kind of like him more or less taking credit for it. I mean, this is not directly taking credit for it, but he says, as concerns America's description of these attacks as terrorist attacks, that description is wrong. These young men, for whom God has created a path, have stifled the battle to the heart, have shifted the battle to the heart of the United States. We implore God to accept those brothers within the ranks of the martyrs and to admit them to the highest levels of paradise. They have done this because of our words, and we have previously incited and roused them to action in self-defense, defense of our brothers and sons in Palestine, and in order to free our holy sanctuaries. If inciting for these reasons is terrorism, and if killing those that kill our sons is terrorism, then let history witness that we are terrorists.
Wow. Holy shit.
That is
We are living in crazy. Just here in Palestine, like in that letter, and then all the TikTok kids finding Bin Laden's letter, like
Again,
living in a
that's
crazy time with this.
yeah. that's enough for me. We don't need to get into the planes or holograms and shit. Like, or
Uh-huh.
like Osama bin Laden hated Israel, and the main
Mhm.
reason that they did 9/11 was because of Israel, and they in
Mm.
Israel's oppression of the Palestinians, Israel attacking Lebanon. One of the
Mm.
hijackers was literally in like he was like literally living nearby where the Israelis like let this Lebanese Christian group like butcher all these people in the Lebanon War in the
Oh
80s.
wow.
And there was another a hijacker that their father was Palestinian. And, Osama bin Laden, his dad had worked on the Al Aqsa Mosque. He had
Oh
literally
wow.
like refurbished the Al Aqsa Mosque
That's
in
crazy.
like,
Wow.
and Osama bin Laden, of course, is rich as fuck. Osama bin Laden was like had a fortune of $300 million. And
Yeah.
his dad was like the modernizer of Saudi Arabia. He was like the guy that built all the roads in Saudi Arabia.
Just to go back to the beginning of this, and this is a testament to how kind of socially blacklisted and strange 9/11 was for like our generation, or like I feel like for us, I just feel like everyone I talk to has a similar experience with this, and a lot of people don't even know that he came from a royal family, Osama bin Laden. It's so crazy. I mean, I'm not saying it's not a
Yeah.
well-known fact or anything. Just like when I talk to people that don't hear about this or watch these kind of documentaries we're talking about, it's one of the things that surprises them. And man, it's so bizarre. I mean,
Well, and
that's
then the
such a
Bush
safe
family
thing.
was doing business with the bin Laden family is one of the conspiracy theories that's actually true.
Yeah,
That,
yeah.
I think one of Osama bin Laden's like brothers or something was connected to someone that was connected to like some of the Bush stuff with like not I don't think it was Zapata Petroleum, but it was one of those like oil because there was a Saudi Texas connection where a bunch of Saudi like wealthy Saudi people were doing business in Texas in like the 70s and 80s and like some of the bin Ladens because the bin Ladens are a big family also. I mean bin Laden was the 17th of 52 children.
Wow.
But I think his mom was one of the favorite wives. But no, I mean, I think I was really interested when. Oh yeah, here's another Osama quote about 9/11, and this is him not saying he did it, but him saying why he thinks it happened. He said, "The events of Manhattan were retaliation against American-Israeli alliance's aggression against our people in Palestine and Lebanon."
Wow. That's exactly what you were just talking about.
Wow.
And we were never told that our entire lives. We were never
No.
told that once. We were never even. It was never even
They
allowed. Like hinted
they
at.
don't. They would never show you like there is no way in hell that your parents or the school system or anything like mainstream media would show you Bin Laden's letter.
Yeah, I never read that until it like went. It was like on. I'm not even on TikTok, but I just
Right.
heard about like the trend.
Yeah, another thing about just our generation getting, just being the age we were where we vaguely remember, we have these like abstractions of our memory, or, Niko, you're blessed with like that strange instance, of trying to play the video game with the TV going at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like, it's almost like media, the news and all media platforms after it's just shifted towards like this war narrative and post 9/11 type of style. And it kind of blacklists you from learning about any of this stuff or thinking of it in a different way at all.
Yeah, it's a lot to process as far as like just in our like lives. Um, but no, I really tried to do a deep dive the last couple of years just to like get some of these details more consistent. Michael Scheuer, he's a pretty cool writer. I mean, I'm sure I don't know. I don't know if he actually did 9/11. He's tried to position himself in a way where he like is just pure incompetence. But I think his wife is the woman that Zero Dark 30 is based off of,
Well,
Oh my
and
God.
Alfreda Scheuer, and she was funny enough, Alex Station, which was basically the UBL, is what it was called, the Osama bin Laden unit, Alex
oh yeah.
Station in the 90s. They were trying to kill Osama bin Laden. Clinton almost killed bin Laden 10 separate times.
Wow.
Or I think up to 13 times they were trying to kill bin Laden. And then Bush comes in and they just stop. They just seem to stop trying to kill bin Laden. They just seem to stop trying to kill him. But anyway, the narrative that Scheuer, that, Zero Dark 30, oh my God, fucking thought that was I'm not even going to make a joke right now, but the most like insane, like 3 jokes just go through my mind when I hear an ambulance outside. But no, the key about Zero Dark 30 that I almost think makes that movie, it would almost be a more interesting movie, is if you tell the audience member that the Jessica Chastain main character like had literally failed at trying to kill Osama bin Laden too. It wasn't just like one group of people. It wasn't just that one group of people inherited like this unprecedented attack that couldn't have been stopped. No, it was the fucking CIA that, let's just say they failed. Let's just say, whoops, like slipped on a banana peel.
13
Had
times.
no fucking idea it was going to happen, which of course they did. But there were efforts to kill him. I think that is true. The Bush's actions to me really signal that there was some kind of like stand down order though, because
Yeah.
they were close to killing him. I don't know if I believe this whole idea that Osama bin Laden himself was on the CIA payroll. He had probably gotten money from the CIA. He was on the same side as the CIA in the war against the Soviets in the 80s. And but the other thing that's obvious too about the Osama Saddam Hussein connection that's stupid is that they hated each other. Osama bin Laden wanted to, and that's the other thing that they say is what made him do 9/11 is the fact that America had we had our bases stationed on the land of the holy mosques in Saudi Arabia or whatever the term is, because we were doing the Gulf War in the 90s, and he went to one of the kings and one of the Saudi royals, and he was like, hey, I have 60,000 men at my control. And this is like whatever year the Gulf War, like 91. So this is a couple of years after the Afghanistan war against the Soviets had ended. And he said, we don't need the Americans' help. I can do it. I can expel Saddam Hussein if he tries to invade Saudi Arabia. And the Saudis were like, oh, this guy is just like a egomaniac. He just like has visions of grandeur, But no, I mean, he hated Saddam Hussein. He hated Saddam Hussein, and then he started criticizing the Saudi royal family. He started saying that they were corrupt and they were abusing the citizenry. So that's another thing that kind of happened where he became hated and he got ousted from Saudi Arabia like in the mid 90s at a certain point, just because he was talking so much shit about him. But no, I mean, it seems pretty clear that there were princes with foreknowledge. I mean, as far as like the Saudi connection, and he was best buddies with Prince Turki, and Prince Turki was the head of Saudi intelligence, and he donated, I think, $1 million a month to the Contras as part of a deal during the Afghanistan war for the CIA helping arm the Mujahideen. Prince Turki of Saudi intelligence. So these guys are all kind of like, there's so many connections that are like complicated, but no, I read another thing that was crazy about that period, that people that ended up, and I think James Corbett said this in an interview, that he said that there was literally a specific consulate in Jeddah that gave like the authorization for all these passports to people that ended up doing 9/11.
Wow.
And apparently a lot of these people were definitely, but that's where I get a little confused, is I don't think all the hijackers fought in the Afghanistan war, if that makes sense. But that
just
this
moved by the spirit.
no, but there were definitely a bunch of, so there were Mujahideen that came over to America to get training by the CIA to go back to the Soviet to Afghanistan and fight the Soviets. So the idea is that this like consulate that was helping like Saudi nationals and stuff was like just super sketch, and like was probably the place where everyone got their passport. But in general, it was way easier for Saudis to get into the United States because the Bush family had such extensive connections with the Saudi oil stuff. So we had just such a nice relationship with them before the event. But Yeah, there's so many details to go into.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Man, you just we just made this whole the United States. It's truly like people sum it up so easily just to be like it's about oil, and,
Yeah,
and then like, but it's like, dude, the war on terror was a fucking sham and a failure. It was just another Vietnam. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah,
except people willingly went. It's crazy.
yeah, and nothing had to do with Osama bin Laden. He ends up popping up in Pakistan, who's supposedly they're the people that we were allied with to get rid of the Soviets, and they, for whatever reason, he's in a fucking house. Like, if you believe the mainstream narrative, he's in a house like a mile away from like their West Point, like the Pakistani West Point or something. So it seems like at least the Pakistani government had some idea he was there.
Like,
But
and
then
then you
we,
have the enhanced torture program, like John
yeah, what's
Kirikow, like talking about it, being
yeah,
like
John Kiriakou.
Jerry Kiriakou. Thank you. Yes, John Kiriakou, who just fucking like is exposed, like just talking about like how they're taking it so casually at the CIA, and they're just doing like absolutely horrible shit to people.
Yeah, because they didn't have the interrogation techniques. They had to like come up with a list of
No.
like interrogation techniques from scratch. And
Fucking psychos.
Kiriakou is like, we thought a bunch of them we're gonna get struck down. You ask for more than you're gonna get type of idea, and they just agreed to everything. And then Kiriakou and the CIA is like, yeah, the vibe was kind of like, okay, it's kind of an unspoken thing that one day we're all going to get called in front of Congress and we're going to have to answer for this. And never happened.
Wow.
Never happened. Never a congressional investigate. I mean, there was a report written that torture doesn't work, and then all these people are in Guantanamo and shit, and Abu Ghraib, and plenty of them are innocent. Plenty of them very thin connections, and we
There's
just
still
torture them
dudes in
mercilessly.
Guantanamo.
Yeah, because you can't try them in the West after they've been tortured, so they just don't
Yeah.
release them, or they just release them, so no one faces trial. So like this is another one of those crazy ass events in American history where we don't get a fucking trial, which is like, okay, that makes sense. The two most like the two events that just like don't pass the smell test, the JFK assassination and and 9/11, there's just no real like investigation. Like, I mean, the 9/11 commission, I think they similar to, not to bring up October 7th, but similar to that, where Netanyahu is just being like, yeah, let's do an investigation like in a couple years or something. Let's just do it in a couple years. It's like, yeah, is that how a murder investigation works? You don't investigate for the first 5 years? Like, is that how any other investigation ever works? Like, but no, I guess 9/11 works like that. It was like years delayed, and they didn't even Building 7 isn't even in the 9/11 report.
Yeah.
And then like John Kiriakou even or say how do you say his last name?
No, you got it.
Oh,
Kiriakou.
Kiriakou. Okay, cool. John Kiriakou said also that like people sat him down and were like, something is going to happen in like 2000,
Yeah.
and they're like, we don't know what, but something is going to happen.
No, yeah, and the terrorists, the CIA 100% knew that two of the terrorists were in the country, like as of 2000, 2001. Like they had tracked them well enough to know they were kind of Osama bin Laden people, and they just they were just able to get passports. And then it's like, there's a guy working for the FBI that sees these like that sees the hijackers like training like to fly, like going through flight school like in Arizona, and then nothing happens. Like, but no, the mainstream narrative is that the CIA hated the FBI so much, they hated each other so much that they refused to share intelligence with each
Yeah.
other, which is
Yeah.
just kind of a laughable premise if you realize that 3,000 people died, that it just because of that. I think there's some degree of truth in that because, at least from what Kiriakou says, the FBI was way better suited at interrogation, but they like weren't even part of the torture program because the CIA gets foreign intelligence
Right.
and they have to deal with like the world, and the FBI deals with America. But I don't know, some of the incompetent stuff to me just like saying that that's like incompetence. It's like, okay, to some degree, but it's very hard for me to believe that in this era that comes right after it, where you have the NSA and you can read every message, and the NSA can turn your phone on when it's off, and they can record, like they can just watch you whenever they want. Like the idea that we didn't have that in the 90s, it's like, really? They really had no idea about the exact detail. I mean, I've heard rumors that they totally had like Al-Qaeda meetings like bugged. Like there was not a Al Qaeda meeting in like Kuala Lumpur in like '98, and they just like heard them say they were going to attack like the Twin Towers or some shit. But again, the incompetence angle to all this is to say, oh, well, we didn't know they'd pull it off. It's like, okay,
And then then it comes down to that yet again, where it's either like somebody knew something and didn't do something, or they're letting it happen, or it's the most amount of gross negligence you've ever seen in your entire life.
yeah, which I think is, I think it's impossible. I mean, a bunch of Bin Laden family members and a bunch of Saudi royals flew out of the country immediately, like the day of 9/11, like the week of 9/11, they all left America, were not interviewed by the FBI.
Wow.
They're just let to go. When all planes were downed, there were Bin Ladens in the air flying back to Saudi. It's a little on the nose. Like, it seems like they had an idea on who did it. It seems like they also weren't questioned. So it seems like we just decided. And then here's another one. I didn't even have this in like my notes, but so I heard this thing from Scott Horton, who's like a genius of like Middle East stuff. He said that because we initially thought Bin Laden was in Afghanistan, so we went after him in like September or like October 2001, right? No, I think it was like October or December. And they went after him, I think, at Tora Bora, and they just like let him go.
Oh yeah.
We could have got him, and then we just like let him go. Like, and there's like, I've like read books where it kind of goes through like what Bush was saying at the time, and Bush was literally messaging saying we just got to get Bin Laden, that's the objective, and then he like kind of pivoted to say that like terrorism is a greater war, and then that kind of simultaneously was when these generals were more or less given a stand down order, let Bin Laden escape in Tora Bora. And it's like you read shit like that and you're like, like what am I like, how am I supposed to interpret this? That this is like
Yeah.
that this is like oh no, they just decided, because no, don't worry, 9/11 was totally what they told you it was. All Bush was doing there was he wanted to go after Saddam Hussein. So he let Bin Laden go so that we could have Bin Laden as an enemy for the next 10 years to wage war as like an image to wage war against. No, that's what he did. That's the mainstream version of that event, I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure the mainstream version is that he was intentionally let to leave because Bush wanted to wage like a 5-front war and get rid of Gaddafi and knock out Syria, Libya, all these different countries, Iraq, Iran. That was what they wanted out of it. They
As
didn't
if
just
Gaddafi did anything that the U.S. said he did.
No, exactly. And the Adam Curtis goes into that so specifically that he was like a guy that just completely probably had nothing to do with terrorism at all. I mean, I'm sure he probably helped financially back like Hezbollah or something. I actually don't know the exact details with him, but the Bush was like acting like he was a supervillain, and then he like disarmed. He didn't even have nuclear weapons, and he said he did, and then like, so there's a lot of that. But no, I don't think Bush knew what the fuck was going on. He's like a puppet president. Like he didn't know what was going on. Dick Cheney was notoriously like a literal lizard monster that was one of the strongest VPs ever. I think I've told this story before, but in the in Wormwood, in the series about MK Ultra and this guy, I forget his name, Frank Olson.
Yes.
In that series, apparently, when this family has been told that the CIA gave your dad acid unknowingly at this event in the 50s, and he committed suicide because he was dosed with acid without his permission, that the person who went to President Ford in the 70s and said, we should give them a certain amount of money so they don't learn everything about this program and sue the government for these documents, was fucking like Donald Rumsfeld, I'm pretty sure, and Dick Cheney.
Wow.
They were in the Ford administration. So they had like these tentacles all the way back in like this other notorious event. And then of course they were connected to Reagan and, H.W. Bush and all this stuff. And their companies, Halliburton, like rebuilt. I mean, Halliburton literally just rebuilt like Iraq. Like all the like army bases were like built by Halliburton, I'm pretty sure. And Cheney just like made money off of that.
I
And
just
then
learned that Cheney was the CEO from 95 to 2000 of Halliburton.
yeah. And I forget what even they do. I'm pretty sure like a weapons manufacturer or something.
Why didn't Jimmy Carter had to give up his fucking peanut farm?
Yeah.
He didn't deserve that. Guy's fucking building houses until the day he died for people who can't afford them. Like, are you fucking me? Are you kidding me that Jimmy Carter had to give up his peanut farm and Dick Cheney can make money off weapons and building army bases? That's enough proof to believe that the U.S. government did 9/11. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean,
the greed runs forever.
Well, it's so obvious that we didn't want to point any skepticism at the Saudis, like in any way, shape, or form, because of the business interests of the Bush family. And like, I mean, Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, like James Baker, like all these people had business deals like with Saudi oil, like before 9/11. Like, this whole connection of the Bush family to bin Laden, it's like a real thing. Like people talk about it like a conspiracy theory, but it's like, I don't know. Like bin Laden was part of a really wealthy, well-connected family. Like I said, I mean, the Saudis have like 50 kids. So it's like some of this is, like, do I think the king of Saudi Arabia planned 9/11? No, I don't think that. But I think people pretty high up in the Saudi royal family, like, I mean, 15 of the 19 hijackers were Saudi. And they were all allowed to fly out of the country. There were different princes. Like, I think it was Abu Zubaydah who Kiriakou caught. And I'm pretty sure it was Abu Zubaydah who said that these are the princes with foreknowledge. And then they all ended up dying mysteriously after he said their name in the interrogation.
Wow.
That's so...
Like one of them died of a heart attack without an autopsy. And then at the age of like 45, and then another one went camping in the desert and died of thirst. And then I think another of these princes that was named as having foreknowledge and financially supporting the events of 9/11, the other one, he died a single car accident with no witnesses.
Wow.
Or some shit like that. Like, it's just completely like in your face. These guys, like one of them, I think had like owned like a horse that won the Kentucky Derby in 2002. Like, these are like pretty. I don't remember the names of the princes, but no. And obviously, the other thing that's worthy of bringing up, because again, is al-Qaeda like? It was billed like it was like the international, like it was like the mob on steroids. Was like what the Bush administration tried to push al-Qaeda. And, again, do I think it's questionable that they were able to pull off this event without state actors? Of course, I think that's ludicrous. The idea that they did it without like state actors helping them, which is I'll get into one of my baseless conspiracy theories in a second here. Um, but no, what Kiriakou also said in an interview, because everyone's talking about Mossad, and it's true. I mean, Al Qaeda has, even though Bin Laden hated Israel, like Al Qaeda has really never attacked Israel, and everyone admits that. Like, even though Bin Laden always wanted to, like they never did. And Kiriakou said that Mossad had 100% penetrated Al Qaeda, and the CIA had not when 9/11 happened, meaning that Mossad definitely knew it was about to happen, which feeds into the whole, dancing Israelis thing that has kind of come up of these 5 Israeli guys who all end up kind of being connected to Mossad or watching 9/11 happening and celebrating.
They
And
said that
it's a
their
real thing. I
job
mean,
was to document the event.
Yeah.
no, it's
in a police interrogation. They said that they were there on top of a Mossad-owned like moving company truck.
Yeah, it was clearly a front company organization.
And they were there to like they knew it was gonna happen. They're like, yes, get in there, kill these because it works in the interest of Israel.
Yeah,
like great, we fucking hate these guys, and now America's gonna hate these guys, our greatest ally ever, or literally the thing we suck the teat off of. Absolutely.
no, I mean, I think it's similar to JFK, but so with JFK, what I'd say is there's so many people that hated JFK. For someone to just like come in and be like, "Oh, Israel killed JFK," it's like, okay, we killed him. Let's calm down. Let me say we, and when I say we, I mean the CIA. Like,
well, never
it's the same thing with
never discount American greed. Like, man,
yeah.
fucking LBJ. Like, come on.
No, and it's the same thing with 9/11. It's like, if we're gonna just immediately say Israel did it, and obviously Larry Silverstein, he probably loved Israel and he had Israeli connections, all this kind of stuff is true. And he didn't go to work the day of 9/11. He conveniently stayed home the one day that he ever didn't go in to
dermatology appointment.
Yeah, it's like the craziest story where you're like, how's that even possible? But no, I mean, if the Mossad knew, the CIA knew, and the Bush administration put it into writing. So the other thing I read kind of recently, and I sent Eamonn like a podcast that kind of dealt with this, was this other operation that I was hearing about that points even more to the idea that the Bush administration had some kind of stand down order, was this DIA operation called Able Danger. Have you heard of this, Niko?
No, I haven't heard it. I have not heard of this at all.
So Able Danger was essentially like it was basically military intelligence, and it was a data mining program. So it was high powered software, bore into everything, data that was available, open source internet data, emails believed to be terrorist related, non-secret government data, commercial records, information on foreign companies, logs of visitors to mosques. And they had identified 4 of the hijackers as of early 2000, including Muhammad Atta, Shihi, Hazmi, and Midhar. And as of 2000, they were tracking these people. January 2001, when Bush took power, they shut the whole thing down and they destroyed all the evidence they had collected. And it was apparently up to it was 2 terabytes of data or something. So no one had gone through it. It was just raw intelligence. But they had literally identified Muhammad Atta a year before 9/11,
as a figure, as an influential figure somewhere in America,
as someone that could attack America. And then the Bush administration told them to shut it down. And then here's the reason they did it, which is hilarious given the NSA stuff after. It was because of privacy concerns. They're like, oh no, we don't want to spy on Muslims. We're too afraid that we're infringing on their. Yeah, they're like, we're too nervous about spying on people we think are terrorists, so we're going to destroy all the data, and then we're not going to try to kill Osama bin Laden for a
Yeah.
year, I guess. It's like, okay, guys.
Fucking they let Obama get him. That must have made the Republicans seethe.
Yeah, which I also question if that actually happened, but let's
Well,
assume
the
it did.
dog killed him, right?
I have no idea at this point. And then I've even heard that a bunch of the members in SEAL Team 6 all died in a helicopter crash after.
Oh my
Wow.
god, no.
So like there's like two or three guys that like claim they killed bin Laden. I literally don't know at all who did it, who's claiming it, but they threw his body into the ocean or into the sea.
Oh my.
Like Megatron. Like Megatron. They said we
Oh my
cannot
god.
let this fucker get out here.
What
Yeah,
year
that's
was
another
that
bizarre
when they
one.
threw Megatron into the sea? Like what was
Look,
the
yeah, I'll
which
look it up for you right now.
It's just one of those. Just so bizarre. Yeah, such a big
which
figure. Just
they
getting.
said they did it because they
In
didn't want to give him a
2007.
Yeah, that's predictive programming. That's like some like MK Ultra shit. They're just like predictive, yeah. But again, there's a lot of weird shit. You know, Kurt Weldon is another guy that came forward
Yeah.
recently who's really interesting because he's talking about all these people I'm talking about, like Michael Scheuer and Kofor Black and all these people that because you know Richard Clark, there was a lot of people on the inside in the CIA. People like Michael Scheuer and Richard Clark, I believe. I think they were all considering like they're like again, who even knows how true this is? But just to cover their ass, what I've heard is like there's this. Let me call it a rumor. This is like the ultimate thing. Like I don't know how to prove this, but I've heard it claimed that they were thinking about giving it their resignation letter about how little the Bush administration was taking Al Qaeda, like how not seriously, and how they were like, we're gonna get attacked because they were screaming it. Like as of like July 2001, the CIA was just like constantly aware of this. I mean, like, you know, we had like all the color systems of like awareness and stuff, but all the mainstream reporting on this is that it was like exploding through the system. The Bin Laden determined to strike in U.S. was the headline of the president's daily brief on for Bush at his Crawford, Texas ranch on August 6th. Like, and then
Jesus
Kofor Black.
Christ, no.
No, sorry. So David Tennant briefed Bush August 17th and August 31st. And he didn't say what he told him to the to the 9/11 Commission, but it was just like constantly coming up. September 4th, 2001, Bush's cabinet meets to talk about Osama bin Laden. At the meeting, no progress is made on like what to do. They're just kind of like, oh, let's use this Predator drone to recon Osama bin Laden. They're not even talking about killing him at this point. Fucking Bill Clinton was like almost killing him like 10 separate times. And so Richard Clark, who was the head of counterterrorism, wrote a note to Condoleezza Rice, and he underlined a ton of shit. And he goes, "This is September 4th, 2001. This is like a week before 9/11." He goes, "Are we serious about dealing with the Al Qaeda threat? Is Al Qaeda a big deal? Decision makers should imagine themselves on a future day when the CSG, Counterterrorism Security Group, has not succeeded in stopping Al Qaeda attacks and hundreds of Americans lay dead in several countries, including the US. What would those decision makers wish they had done earlier? That future day could happen at any time. You are left waiting for the big attack
Jesus.
with lots of casualties."
Oh
So
my god.
a week before 9/11, the counterterrorism head is giving Condoleezza Rice a note saying that what are we going to say if what we're going to end up calling 9/11 happened? Like it was the most obvious thing in the universe because they didn't even try for like a whole year. They like for like 8 months. The Bush administration just like let
Which
this.
makes me think, like, what the fuck else were they doing?
No, exactly.
Like,
And they wrote the paper. The Project for a New American Century said we need a Pearl Harbor state. So again, that's where I get with this is, you know, do I think that Osama bin Laden is a fictional character that had nothing to do with 9/11? It's like, no, I don't think that. There's a lot of evidence that he had to do with 9/11, you know? But at the same time, I mean, do I really have to like go way over the top with this and say that the terrorists weren't terrorists and they weren't Arab and they weren't Saudis and they weren't Muslim and all this stuff that some people say. Because I've heard that said as well, that it's all, again, that's all fake and it's just totally fake. It's like America did it and we blame Muslims. We did blame the wrong countries. I mean, Afghanistan didn't do 9/11, you know, like Iraq didn't do 9/11, and then somehow Saudi Arabia, when 15 of the 19 hijackers are Saudi, we just don't ever even like looks like suspicious at them, you know. But does it really matter? Like, do we really need to have orchestrated the whole event for it still to be like horrible? Like, it's still like
No.
it's still pretty
On its
crazy.
face, it's like purely on its face, it's horrible.
Like letting it happen, or it's like, you know, there are direct energy weapons. It's still the same thing. like they let it happen.
It like it's already horrible, and then the only time, like when you look at it even more, when you stare it in the face, it just gets worse.
Yeah.
Because
And so
oh, go ahead.
sorry, I've been drinking, so I'm like losing control. But losing losing control, and then all of a sudden we just are just like get so like racist. But no, I'm not gonna get racist. So I have a couple other things as far as like conspiracy theories and shit. So the planes. I've heard people say that, like pilots and stuff, that the route that these guys did like made no sense and the planes were going too fast.
Yeah.
My base, and then the other thing is the fact that, you know, okay, Building 7 seemed to be some kind of like demolition. Okay, did al-Qaeda do it? And we don't want to be embarrassed by the fact that al-Qaeda was able to sneak all these bombs into this building and it happened. I don't know. Let's say that happened. There were bombs going off. There were witnesses that were there. I forget the guy's name, but I saw a clip of a guy who survived Building 7 and then died under mysterious circumstances like years later after he had like started saying what he saw. But yeah, there were bombs going off in Building 7. It was like not hit by a plane or anything. It wasn't a natural fire. Clearly, it was the same people that did 9/11 like were bombed Building 7. I don't know. Maybe the Saudis did it similar to the Vegas shooting or something, and we're running cover. And anyway, that's a whole other thing. So there's this whole thing about, you know, steel beams need to get to a high enough temperature. This is something I read that I thought was interesting. So some of the writings of the hijackers, one of the things they thought about doing was having bringing bombs onto the planes. So they actually wrote about that they were thinking about bringing bombs onto the planes. I'm not saying, again, do I know how many bombs it takes to blow up those two towers? Again, I believe that they were hit by planes. I believe they were planes. I believe they were the hijacked planes. I also think it's possible the hijackers brought bombs on the planes because they wrote it themselves. They said they were thinking about doing that. If that's the case, that might explain why the towers came down. Like maybe they had a shit ton of explosives on the planes as well. That's a semi-mainstream but also new argument for how the towers came down, right?
Yeah.
On top of that, my baseless conspiracy theory is more interesting because I kind of do think that there's no way that these guys were able to fly the planes like they did. And I mean that in the sense that I've heard a couple of like pilots say that like on simulators they've tried to do it, and like I've never heard anyone being able to do like the routes they did. And that makes, there's like practical sense to that. Baseless conspiracy theory.
Let's go.
Okay. And I think this makes sense. First of all, obviously a state actor is involved. The terrorists couldn't have done it themselves. If a terrorist was working with a state actor, maybe, and this is no evidence of this whatsoever, maybe an intelligence service like the Mossad or ISI, which is like Pakistani intelligence, or I forget the Saudi intelligence, what their label is, or the CIA, one of these organizations had some kind of software that they gave them to hook into the plane so that you could remote control the plane. Because there's been that talk before that the planes were drones and all this bullshit, which I don't think is true, but I think they kind of flew like drones. As far as from what I've heard, like pilots haven't been able to recreate the routes, you know? And I think that's within the realm of this event is so strange that I almost need to invent something completely crazy, but it also does. It explains how these guys who had never really flown before, that only took like a couple of classes on flying, were able to do these crazy maneuvers on a plane they'd only flown like tiny planes too when they were practicing.
Yeah.
And
Wild one.
if you think about it, there's a very high likelihood if you're trying to hit the Twin Towers, or God forbid the Pentagon, that or the one in Pennsylvania that Cheney shot down. But you could try to hit the Twin Towers and you could miss. So how do they hit those on the first try?
No, yeah.
Like there's no near misses. There's no one wing hits the tower, which is what you would think based on the official narrative, that this ragtag group of guys that, are, kind of bad Muslims. I mean, they're jerking off and they're drinking and they're smoking and all this stuff and going to strip clubs. Like, I'm sure they were feeling guilty about that. One of them, even crazy enough, one of them was like writing these like eloquent love letters to like his love, like in Germany. And you're just like, you're like, Jesus, dude, you're out of your mind. Why are you doing 9/11? Like
yeah, man, like you don't gotta do that.
And again, that's what I'm saying is I think some of the people that educate themselves just from like YouTube videos and stuff, they don't actually like look into some of like the hijackers and stuff. And it's like, I think this is real. I think the hijackers did this, but I do think there's a big hole there between how they flew the planes. And that's my conspiracy theory. That is, first of all, they brought bombs in the plane. Second of all, that they had some kind of software. And I started to think this because, well, Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine's father, notoriously sold the Promise software, which had a backdoor built in for Israel. And the Promise software was basically a predictive crime software. And it could look at like patterns in the early computers. It was like the 90s. And one of the things that the Promise software could do was it could look into stocks. And it would look at shady deals on the stock market, which is another way, because criminals will buy a ton of stock if they plan on doing a fucking terrorist attack and they're going to make a lot of money, which is what happened with 9/11, which proves that they know that that's something that terrorists do, even though they didn't try to like put anyone in prison for that. But no, I think there's something weird with this software stuff, because I hear so much regarding the Inslaw affair, or like, which is I think the Promise software scandal, or this stuff with like the octopus murders, which that doc on Netflix, and connected to like Iran Contra and stuff. There were some weird like software companies and like data, and there's so much stuff like that where you're like, okay, something doesn't add up about 9/11. There's something that is like there's a lot of things that are flagrant about it, but I do think the planes and how they flew is weird. And I will invent a reason for what happened. And I think that's possible in 2001, that you can hijack the planes remotely. But I think the Operation Northwoods idea is that you flip out the planes. You take all the civilians to another location, you just kill them. That's like what David Icke thinks happened.
Okay, one thing that really doesn't sit well with me is that this is kind of like when remember when that dude, like a couple of years ago, when that dude drove through shit, like a crowd in New Orleans, and then that Tesla exploded at the Trump Hotel in Vegas?
Yes.
Yeah.
That like weird, that was like that, I felt like the Twilight Zone. But like,
that was a weird one.
Because it was just weird, but like, and the same thing there, like, I think about this, and that kind of like reminded me of it, was they found like the passports of these guys. And it's like, okay, if they had explosions on the plane, that shit's gone. Like, if it's on them, it's like gone. And it's like, we found it through all the rubble and through everything else. Like, it's just like, it just doesn't. It's just like, and the same thing with that dude when the Tesla exploded. They found his like passport or whatever, and I'm like, that's a little more likely than like maybe
Yeah.
a plane or a plane loaded with bombs after a building has fallen down. But it's also like,
No, I do agree because it was like partially burnt too. It was like on the edges of it or something. Um,
intentionally burnt.
yeah, because I do agree that that is like very weird. The passport thing like never made any sense. That they found a passport like at like near the tower. Um,
Like,
that's like
Eamonn,
crazy. I think it's entirely possible that because again, just even considering that as an idea, you kind of go. It's pretty easy to go in this direction of there weren't even hijackers, where it's like they just put the passport there. I think I don't know. It's still possible that the hijackers did it, but then there was so much foreknowledge. I mean, that's so flagrant though. Like imagine being in the FBI or the CIA and you just like you actually like just throw a passport like near ground zero. How sinister that is. Like
after you finish this
You
video,
have to live
just
with that, and you have to answer to Christ for
didn't
that, and that's the
didn't
thing.
didn't they find it a couple days later though?
Like that's not the point, even. Like, no, you know what I mean? Is
I
that they
think
found it all.
no, yeah. Well, that's the thing though, is I think it was like it's like the magic bullet. It's like a bullet just gets put on a gurney like days later. And they
It's
go,
like
yeah, this is what did it. This bullet that's in pristine condition. It went through 5 people.
the
It
burnt
started twerk.
edges. The burnt edges. They were like some dudes at like CIA or FBI were like, "Fuck, we gotta put their passports over there. We gotta get it there. We gotta." Oh my god. Yeah, that's gonna be the icing on the fucking cake, and then they do like another bump of cocaine. They're like, "It's gonna be awesome."
No, but yeah, I'm trying to think of. I feel like we've touched on a handful of stuff. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to. I feel like I'm gonna kick myself when this episode ends. I'm gonna immediately just remember like 5 things, but I don't know. You guys had anything else you wanted to add?
no, I was thinking about that a second ago. You said we said all the names that I was hoping to say, the numbers I was hoping to hear.
Yeah, and a couple I didn't expect to say, and I'm happy that were said.
Oh, nice. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. I guess just the conclusion of this episode. I mean, a lot of thoughts. It's hilarious to do a 9/11 episode because it's just it's so raw. It's so MK Ultra. It's such a
Yeah.
psyop. There's so much stuff about it that seems intentionally like confusing, and it's you know I mean, again, it's like just all these witnesses hear explosions in the Twin Towers. Explosion comes from the basement, explosion here, explosion there.
Yeah, the firefighters.
Firefighters.
Right.
Kurt Weldon said that a firefighter went up to the floor where the plane hit, and they
Yep.
said, "Oh yeah, I got this under control.
2 fires, we got it, and then
2
minutes
fires,
later,
we got it." And then the building comes down, and you're just like, "Okay."
I think
Because people have walked through this. The conspiracy theory angle is that these buildings were like wired with explosives, and like I do think. Hello, hello. No, sorry, we got cut off brutally by the hands of by the Talmud. No,
the Talmud band.
I'm not making that joke. An hour 37 minutes in, but yeah, I got cut off talking about what let's say wink wink the Saudis did. No, I think I was saying something about just like the practical idea. I've heard people walk through the counter of how fucking crazy it is that the idea that the 2 buildings were a controlled demolition. And that's when you get into people saying it was like a direct energy weapon because it's so insane. Like the buildings come down so naturally. They don't hit any other buildings. Like
Yeah.
they don't sag over. They just come perfectly down at free fall speed. And okay, sure, planes hit them. And maybe, like I said, there were explosives on the planes. I don't know. It's never happened before or since. This event has never happened. So we have no comparison of any of this to anything, right? We don't have 9/11 2 where the buildings don't fall down as smoothly. Like there's just not.
A small country would like to argue that statement.
Yeah, and I see people post about it too, where they'll be like, "Hey, look, there's a plane hit a building, and the building didn't fall down." It's like, yeah, it does seem weird that these buildings fell at free fall speed, and I get it. You want the energy weapons to be real, and I think they are real to some degree. But and I also think the counter of that the buildings were wired with explosives, because I think I've heard someone say that for the buildings to fall at free fall speed, you got to put like explosives at every floor. And clearly that would have caused a ruckus. If two towers where 10,000 people like work every day, there's just like, Ashkenazi Jewish guy. No, I'm sorry. If there's just anybody, if there's just random people coming in that are pretending to be the maintenance, and then they're just putting a bomb like over the fucking urinal, it's like, okay, someone's gonna know. Like that does seem like impractical. The idea of nobody noticed both buildings got wired for a controlled demolition. You guys kind of get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know shit about explosives. I don't know shit about architecture. So that's why I try to stay away from some of that shit, is it's so confusing to me. Where it's like, sure, this like the steel buildings thing, like fire has to get to a certain temperature for it to like melt. I don't know. That's like out of my wheelhouse. I feel less sure of that than the president's daily brief is saying we're gonna get hit. And like the fact that the Twin Towers were like designed to withstand getting hit by airplanes, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Like there's all this shit that just like it just makes it so questionable, like how they came down that fast. So I don't know, I get it, but that's where I think that like if it was an inside job to that degree, it's just we're living in a pure MK Ultra like I don't even know hellscape where like they're just like literally doing events to condition us to do certain things. And I don't know if I go that far that the people who did 9/11 did it with video game controllers and they have control over how everything happened. But I have a lot of questions. I tend to think that it's possible, first of all, that bombs were on the planes, and second of all, that there were some explosives. Do I think the whole buildings were, there were explosives on every floor, like I've heard some people say needed to happen? I don't think that's what happened, but who knows? People just didn't give a fuck in the 90s. We thought we were invincible. Maybe you're working at the World Trade Center and you see, just to counterbalance the racism from earlier, you see a fellow named Abdul walking down the hallway. No.
There's a whole 30 Rock episode about that where Liz Lemon thinks that her neighbor is a terrorist and like reports him and gets him like detained. That she was like recording videos of him going through like jungle gyms and shit, and they were doing like
Yeah.
trying to join like like the Amazing Race or something. And it's just like,
That was so
man,
funny.
like I bet New York got crazy after that.
No, yeah. All jokes aside, it is unfortunate because Muslim fundamentalism is definitely like a problem, but to say that people in the Middle East having like Muslim theocracies is like why 9/11 happened. It's just, I don't think that's why it happened. I think the CIA
Yeah.
and the Bush administration let it happen. And there are so many steps before, like Iran can want to do 9/11 against us, but especially nowadays, but even before the NSA shit, I find it so hard to believe no one knew what was going to happen. No one could possibly conceive that we would have gotten attacked, and that we were running flight simulations that day. We're like NORAD and all these different, like they were all like, and it was in such a way where people that were like literally like on the ground like dealing with planes were looking at their screens, and they were seeing like blips on the radar that were part of the simulation, and it like confused them. So there was like a delayed reaction to even knowing that there were hijackings going on. Like there's shit about this whole thing where you're like, Yeah, that all happened on the same day, just because, like, just randomly. So I don't know. It seemed like we knew it was going to happen, and we tried to, we, the CIA, mainly, not even though I was making racial jokes. Let's always just blame the CIA, just so we're not racist. That's our new motto here. Just so we're not racist on the Half of God's Face podcast, we're going to blame the CIA. Wasps. We're going to blame the wasps. That's all.
Yep.
That's all I had to
Yep.
say. And tomorrow I'm going to tune in. September 11th, I'm going to tune into the Patrick Bet David podcast, and the Guinea Wop better be ready to tell me about 9/11. He better be upset. He better be freaking out. I'm going to be pumped for the 9/11 podcast coverage here the next 2 days.
Hell yeah. We're part of the
I just
legacy.
wanted to thank you guys again for not bringing up my involvement again.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Okay. No, I was going to say this to you earlier. I've said this off mic, but Niko, he kind of looks like American Sniper and Muslim Brotherhood at the same time sometimes. Heyo!
Hey yo!
Oh, take my wife from me, please. You look like Chris Kyle and the Blind Sheik at the same time.
I'm
Oh,
both.
take
I'm
my
both
wife
at the same time.
So anyway, peace and love. We Half of God's Face loves every type of person except for wasps. Let's leave it at that. White Anglo-Saxon Protestants that's who really runs the world. People blame the Jews, but it's the wasps. It's the Bush family. Let's just keep it. Let's keep our eyes on the ball here, guys. Let's keep our eyes on the ball.
That's
Bush
right.
family. Let's just blame Bush and Cheney. Let's, the Israelis knew, the Saudis knew, but we also knew. So it's all equal. All right. I think that's it. All right. Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.